Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this 15th installment of Talking VoIP with Datagate. I'm Mark Loveys, CEO of Datagate Telecom Billing, and in today's episode, HIPAA Compliance 101 for MSPs. Our guest is Paul Redding from Compliancy Group, who are leading experts in HIPAA compliance. Paul, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the invite to come speak today.
Very welcome. It's great to have you back again. So, Paul, just getting straight into it, for people that are not familiar with the subject, what is HIPAA and what does it mean to be HIPAA compliant?
Well, first of all, it's HIPAA. I can't tell you how many times I've seen MSPs, other service providers, put HIPAA. It's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So it was founded back in like 1996. It was built around the concept of insurance payments for the healthcare industry as a whole. What it really is, Mark, is a 700-page law written by lawyers to be audited and interpreted by other lawyers, and it's applied to absolutely everybody that touches anything in the healthcare space.
Right, I see. And so in terms of MSPs that have HIPAA certifications, how do you at Compliancy Group help MSPs become HIPAA compliant?
Well, it's funny you just said that. You stepped on a landmine there. There is no certification for HIPAA, believe it or not. Even what we give, if you see the seal behind me here, the HIPAA seal of compliance from us, that's third-party validation of your processes. That's third-party validation of your good faith effort, but it's not a government-issued certification for HIPAA. There's no such thing. HIPAA compliance itself is a good faith effort at implementing what are the 7 fundamental elements of a compliance program as outlined by Health and Human Services. In a nutshell, what that means, it's a combination of cybersecurity controls, policies and procedures, and risk management.
Right, I see. And so in terms of telecom and MSPs, so what does that mean for them, and why would they work with Compliancy Group for that?
Well, something that a lot of service providers don't realize, and this goes for managed service providers, it goes for telecom providers, but really any, the term now TSP, right? Like technology service providers as a whole. Yes. If you can conceivably interact with, view, store, or transmit what is called EPHI, that's electronic protected health information. If you are all involved in the movement of this stuff, or you can see or touch it, then you're what's called a business associate. And believe it or not, you have the same requirements and responsibilities that the healthcare organization that built that data has. Where that kind of reflects in the MSP, TSP kind of world is, let's take, for example, your ticketing system. One time, I used to own an MSP for a very long time, and a gentleman that works for me came in and goes, "What do I do with this?" And he shows me a screenshot where we had a doctor who had like an Outlook pop-up, right? So every time Outlook throws this pop-up, it crashes a couple of minutes later. So the doctor gets smart. It pops up. He's like, "Ooh, got it." Takes a screenshot, shoots it to my help desk. There in the preview pane is a full medical record for one of his clients. Suddenly, my tech has seen it. We're storing it in my version of ConnectWise at the time, right? Like it's in my ticketing system. Conceivably, the screenshot was even captured by my RMM. Suddenly, we've got, what we call EPHI bleed into my organization. So when we talk about it, the reason I call that out is a lot of times people think, right, backups. I back up your data, it goes to Datto signs the BA, we're good, right? If you're involved in that process, you have to do this stuff yourself. That's why people work with us.
Right, I see. So from Datagate's point of view as a billing system provider, what does that mean in terms of an invoice? I guess an invoice to be HIPAA, to be compliant with HIPAA regulations, what should it or should it not do?
Well, one of the things we try to do is, we can build out your compliance program. We can put you into the right workflows. We can help you design your risk assessments, all this stuff. But we do have to help you realize you cannot control your customers. It's impossible. I couldn't stop that doctor from sending me that email any more than I can start a doctor for starting a ticket with, "I've lost, Mark Loveys' medical records." Well, the fact that you named him in the ticket puts that into my system. And now conceivably, most of the MSPs out there, what do? You tie your tickets to your invoicing system. The invoice then moves over your ticket titles. So one of the things we teach you to do is, look, a ticket number in reference is fine, but be very careful if you're working with medical providers that hey, look, guys, you can't give me medical records in the form of a ticket name. But again, to your point, can it happen? Sure. Can it bleed into your system? Sure. That's why folks like you work with us, right? Better safe than sorry. Why let somebody else's mistake make this your problem?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Paul, we often see each other at the tech conferences and MSP events and things. Could you explain the connection, I guess, with HIPAA and technology, and what sort of opportunity you're offering to the MSP audiences?
Well, like I said, Mark, I was an MSP for a long time. I was actually one of the earliest resellers of Compliancy Group, one of the first, if not the first. The reason that, call it the marriage between Compliancy Group and the tech community as a whole happened is because in our function of providing a compliance framework for your medical group, for your organization as a whole, we require all these cybersecurity controls. We require things like access management, endpoint protection, backup disaster recovery, secure communications. If you think about the things I'm listing off and you take a managed service provider's, tech stack that they sell, check, 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 check. You guys sell it. You have the solutions. You have the products out there for these people that we're telling them to do these things. But we're third-party validation. It is inappropriate from our view philosophically to grade your test and then go do the work to fix it, right? You're supposed to implement those controls, and we should evaluate them from a completely neutral perspective. So that's really where that relationship began. Is we tell a doctor, you've got to have backups. We tell a doctor, you have to have NIST password guidelines. Multi-factor authentication's got to be turned on in your clouds services, but they don't know how to do that stuff. So first, Compliancy Group kind of found us as a community and said, hey, we're going to work with you to try to align your security stack and services with the controls that we're telling all these medical professionals they have to have. Now, I'll throw what's actually happened over the last several years. That seal of compliance and the partnership that a lot of these MSPs and TSPs have with Compliancy Group has differentiated them in the market. So you see it growing and you see it more rapidly adopted because it makes you stand out. There are 15 managed service providers here in Memphis that I can think of right now that would love to have healthcare business. I only know of a couple that have actually done this themselves and can say when they walk in the door, hey doc, I'm just like you. I'm in healthcare too. This thing right here means I do what you do.
Right. Yeah, that's very powerful. And so from what you're saying, you would get involved in helping MSPs set up firewalls? Is that
oh no.
No.
No, God, no. And that actually again kind of goes back to the neat part of this relationship. Yeah. You may not even need a firewall. Do you need a firewall, or do you need like a SASE solution, right? Are you the world has changed. And so back to when you asked me in the very beginning, what is HIPAA? And I said it's a 700-page law written by lawyers, okay? That law is also applied to everyone in the healthcare space, from a single-user chiropractor up to like LA County, 9 hospitals, 1,200 clinics. The security controls are written in this vague way into this law to allow you to look at your own risk profile, implement what is effective and needed in your environment, and therefore check off these boxes. So no, what we do is we provide the guidelines, the guidance, we give the controls, we help determine examples of the things that can be done. But at the end of the day, we look at our security partners as the security experts in the room, and we look to, them to tell us what, Dr. Smith needs in order to protect his environment. Right.
So which one is more critical, compliance or security?
That is a funny question. That is a funny question, Mark. You would think by asking it that this is about to get really controversial, right? Like I'm about to step on a lot of toes of a lot of mutual friends of ours, right? Go after the threat lockers of the world. And no, but you can't. Actually, it's funny when you ask that question. The reality is, that's like asking me what's more important, my foundation or my house. Mark, the foundation of compliance is security. You cannot achieve compliance without security. It is impossible. And the controls that are in place must be effective for your organization, must be well thought out, and they can be different than the controls of the organization next to you. But a foundation is not the doors and the windows and the walls of my home. It's what my home is built on. So in order for your client, say you're a technology service provider out there, let's stop with that question and ask what they actually were looking for when they hired you. They wanted safety. They don't understand compliance. They don't understand security. They don't understand the difference between them, and they don't understand where they come together. All they know is if they hire this tech nerd over here and this compliance nerd over here, they're supposed to be able to go to bed tonight and nothing bad is going to happen to them. What they don't realize is if all they do is hire the tech nerd, then there can be wildly secure and wildly out of compliance. And if all they do is hire us, then they can be completely paperwork compliant, have all the soft side policies and procedures, everything they need to have, and none of the security controls in place. You've got to have both. It is truly the only way to compliance is through security.
Right, I see. And so who does HIPAA apply to? Who are the your target audience?
So I'll give you a sense of scope and size. And this number right here that I'm about to throw out is literally pre-pandemic. It's actually increased as certain other industries have stumbled. As of, I think, the end of 2019, healthcare as a whole was 26% of the U.S. economy. So it is one of the single, if not the single largest sector of the U.S. economy. Now, out of that segment, about 5 million of those organizations are considered small businesses. Now, I mean, like that's federal small business, which means under 500 users, right? But there's 5 million of them. Now, what's interesting about this is, Mark, I did not just tell you there's 5 million doctors. You have to understand the true answer to your question to get the scope of this. There's only about 800,000 small business covered entities. That means when I say HIPAA, who you immediately think of. Covered entities are dentists, doctors, psychiatrists, clearinghouses, the actual insurance providers, okay? About 800,000 of them. But for every one of them, there are 3 or 4 vendors that are servicing them. There's like 4 million what we call business associates, and that's everybody from the managed service provider, the backup company, but go bigger and go broader. Think about managed print. Think about attorneys that handle medical records through, personal injury and insurance law. Think about the accountant that gets that bill and gets that invoice that you're working at and reconciles for that doctor and sees those medical records and pulls them in. It's a business associate is anyone non-covered entity, non-medical provider that can conceivably interact with the data those covered entities hold. So it's a huge swath of the U.S. economy. Literally, it's like 5 million, just small businesses. The reason I call out the SMB, MSPs, technology service providers that are going to be watching this and interacting with folks like you and me on a daily basis, live and die out of this community and these folks, and they need their help. And it's a great vertical to be in if you understand how to approach it.
Wow, that is huge. Well, I'm still taking that in. So yeah, very, very relevant to our MSP audience. And so what should an MSP do? Where do they start? How do they get on this?
Well, one of my best friends out there is a gentleman named Matt Lee with PAX 8. So I'm actually going to start with something that Matt is beating this drum every single day. It all starts with defensibility. It all begins internally with you. One of the things that I see, Matt, every security professional I know in the environment right now sees, is that the community as a whole has been a little reluctant to implement the same controls for us as we do for the clients downstream. This whole thing really should begin with you getting HIPAA compliant, you making sure you do, and there's 5 audits you have to do as an MSP. You have to do, of course, your IT risk assessment, but I'll ask everybody out there, if you're working in the medical space, how did you do on your high-tech Subtitle D privacy audit this year? Have you done a high-tech Subtitle D privacy audit? And if not, do you realize you've got until the end of this calendar year, or you have been negligent and you have failed to be in compliance with this law? Okay, those kind of things, those kind of lessons need to be looked at internally. You need to do your own risk assessments, make sure you have your policies and procedures. For the love of God, make sure your employees have HIPAA training, not just cybersecurity training, not just the videos that talk about anti-phishing, but something that talks about my privacy as the client, or the patient rather, of your client. Those things start at home. After that, take that and use it as a springboard to work in the medical community, be able to talk about what you've done for compliance, get your head around the business case, but do it after the first and most foremost thing. Don't work with us, work with somebody else. I don't care what you do, but get yourself compliant internally, or it's not worth the risk of working with these medical professionals. It really should be, table stakes if you're going to be in healthcare to be HIPAA compliant yourself.
Yeah. Well, so that's a massive opportunity. And Paul, thank you very much for being our guest today. To our audience, thank you for tuning into this episode of Talking VoIP with Datagate. Our guest today, Paul Redding of Compliancy Group. We'll have contact details for Paul showing up on the screen. We wish you all in your MSP communication endeavors, whatever they may be. And as always, may the VoIP be with you.
Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you. It's great to see you.
Thank you.